As I posted in the event, I think Leanne actually called me out. We do have a hashtag for tonight, so if you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or tweeting about this, please use the hashtag Rowlett Debate. That way we can search for your comments and your feedback later, and it'll all be in one little place, so that'll work real well. So the rules for tonight, and we'll introduce the candidates in just a minute. The rules for tonight will be similar to what we had last week. Candidates will be given 2 minutes for introductions. And then when we start the questions, and you can see I have a stack of questions here, they'll be given, the first candidate to answer the question will be given 2 minutes to respond. And then other candidates will be given 1 minute to comment or respond to that answer. Unlike the other night, we can have some back and forth, so we'll keep the rebuttals and the back and forth to 1 minute each. But that way, that allows the second candidate, if they want to comment on the first candidate's answer, they can, and then the first candidate can respond to their comment if they feel it necessary. So we'll have a little bit of back and forth. The questions did come in. I've got 18 questions that I really want to get to, and 4 or 5 extras if we have some more time. We are going to watch the time and cut off right at 9 o'clock. Because I know a lot of you have to get up early to go to jobs, and some of you aren't fortunate and only have a mile commute like I do. So we will try to get you out of here right at 9 o'clock. And then one final comment. Last week, we had very general questions that were very business specific, economic development specific, incentives, those kinds of things. Tonight's questions are going to be harder. Some of them are specific to specific candidates, so there will be questions directed at an individual candidate, and there will be questions that are general questions that are open to all candidates, and those came in, we wrote them down, typed them up, and got them on here. So I'm going to go ahead and start now with the candidate introductions, first of all, and these are in the order that we drew earlier. First of all, I want to introduce Jason Berry. He is the CEO of Berry Family Services. Second is Bruce Hargrave. He's a current city council member. Third is Robert Van Blumendahl, also a current city council member. And finally, we have Tammy Dana Bashian, Mayor Pro Tem and the owner of Seniors Helping Seniors. All right, so candidates, you guys can grab those microphones. You can go ahead and have a seat. Just unwrap your microphones if they're wired. I think a couple of them are wireless mics. The mics may stay hot, so let's try not to interrupt anybody while they're answering their questions, and just be aware that anything you say can and will be recorded. All right, so we're going to start in the same order, and we're going to start with Jason and let you get started on your introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. My name is Jason Berry, and I'm running for mayor in the great city of Rowlett. I lived in Rowlett for 13 years. I've started a business, purchased a home, married the woman of my dreams, and had my pride and joy, my son, Alan. And I'm a proud member of the Waterview community. I'm the CEO of Berry Family Services over on Rowlett Road. We provide long-term services and supports to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Because of the work I've done with my company, I've spent many years fighting for fair legislation at the state level for folks who many times had no other advocates. And I want to continue my efforts by advocating for the citizens in Rowlett in such a critical time in our history. I started this journey as a concerned citizen, and I am passionate to lead our city and to make Rowlett a community we are all proud to call home. Last year, I served as an alternate member on the Planning and Zoning Commission. While I didn't always have a vote, when I did, I would make sure to strongly consider the opinions of the public. One night when I had a vote, I was the only dissenting vote. After individuals made very passionate pleas to the commission, they were lectured and told for several minutes how they were wrong. As they walked out upset, I walked out with them and apologized and said, "This is not how this should be." At that point, I realized that if I didn't at least try to change the way things go at the city level, that I would not be doing my part as a citizen. This is the kind of leadership that I want to bring to City Hall. As mayor, I will represent and be the voice for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Bruce?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce Hargrave, and I am a 20-year resident here in the city of Rowlett, Texas. And I'm married to my wife, Kathy, and our daughter went to and graduated at Rowlett High School. I serve on the city council, and I ran for city council because of the fact that my house got halfway blown up during the tornado. I lost over 50% of my house. As a result of that, I thought with all the other people that were doing that, I had the time to devote to it, and I would run for city council, and I did. And from the day I took the oath till today, I have never worked harder in any job I've ever done in my life than working on the city council. It's a very demanding job. It requires a lot of study, a lot of preparation, and a lot of thinking through some very complicated issues from time to time. I have an earned doctor's degree in administration. I have served in several different cities with several different city leaderships in different capacities. And it's a joy for me to now stand and be a candidate for your mayor here in the city of Rowlett.
Thank you, Bruce. One quick note, candidates, those of you with the wireless mics, move your hand up on the microphone a little bit more. The bottom is the transmitter. If you cover that, we get a lot of feedback. Okay? All right. Thanks. Robert?
Good evening. My name is Robert Van Blumendahl. Unfortunately, I may have used a poor choice of words in our previous forum, but I am still against new apartments in Rowlett. The actual text of my comment was not attracting the types of people who live in apartments. I was thinking of some evidence we heard at City Council meeting about criminals living in affordable housing that possibly could have a negative effect on our beautiful city. Believe me, nothing else was intended. Sadly, people posted erroneous items claiming that I said them, which were totally false, and have made interpretations about my words that were also fictitious. I suggest you verify everything you read in this campaign, especially from Chris Smith, Verona Warwick, and Leanne Welk. The reason I am against more apartments is that we have almost 4,000 units being built, or been approved. How many more do we need? Do we want 100,000 people in Rowlett? I don't want any more financial debacles like the village of Rowlett. I would like to hold off any new apartment approvals until we have time to evaluate the return on investment for all current developments. We need to assess whether they are of value to our tax base, provide jobs, how traffic is affected, can they sustain other businesses in the city, whether schools can cope for the children, and other financial factors. The only exception would be a facility dedicated to senior living. I will also endeavour to increase funding for streets and alleys. I will strive to bring around a 5-cent tax reduction over 5 years. With the growth of our city, we need to have better police and fire services, create a community garden and a dog park for all our furry friends. I have lived in Rowlett for 25 years and I'm in my 4th year on the City Council and own my own $15 million business, joined the Chamber of Commerce in 2008, have served on many boards and commissions and helped our community whenever needed. There is so much more to tell about me, but I am dedicated, faithful, loyal and a serving citizen.
Thank you, Robert. Tammy?
I'm wired, so I have to be careful. Good evening. I'm Tammy Dana Bastian, and I'm a 15-year resident of Rowlett, and I am married with 2 sons. I want to tell you a little bit about my background. I was raised in a very small town, and I was raised by a father who was our small town community banker. And my desire to be a part of the community started with him. To this day, if I walk down the streets of that town, people stop me and say, "Your dad helped me get my first house. Your dad helped me finance my first business. Your dad helped my mother when she was widowed and lost her husband." That has stuck with me throughout the years. My first 28 years of adult life, I was a practicing certified public accountant in corporate America in the Dallas area. The last 17 of those years, I spent as the director of accounting and finance for a $4 billion software services company. Like many families that are two-income families, my husband and I were carting children around in the backseat of our car, eating fast food and changing clothes into baseball clothes while we're carting them around to baseball practice. In 2008, my husband and I decided we were going to change our lifestyle, and I retired from corporate America. That allowed me to really immerse myself into the community of Rowlett, which is the values I was brought up with. Prior to that time, I was able to be involved in PTAs and church and Boy Scout organizations, but when I retired from corporate America, I was able to fully immerse myself into the city of Rowlett. I did many things to get myself prepared, Leadership Rowlett, various boards and commissions, and then in 2011, when I felt like I was prepared and educated, I ran for city council, and I have been serving on city council ever since. So why am I here today? I'm here because I think I have the leadership and experience that I can continue to move Rowlett forward and grow in prosperity and still maintain our family values that we treasure so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. All right, first question is a general question, and we're going to start and let Jason answer this first, and then, as we said before, the other candidates can respond as well. So, Jason, what do you believe are the top 5 most essential services of city government? And if you had to eliminate one existing department, which would it be and why?
That's a very good question, very thought-provoking. There are many services that are important. Wow, I don't know that I prepared that well for that question. So the only I stumped myself on this one, so I apologize. The essential services, I would have to say probably start with police and fire. Those are by far the most important. Public works, parks, utilities, parks and recreation. Those are all essential services to our city. Obviously, police and fire we can't cut, shouldn't cut. Instead of cutting, I would like to figure out different ways to make those programs work, but I guess if I'm backed into a corner needing to cut one specific service, wow, that's very difficult. The one I would have to put up there first, I guess, would have to be Parks Department. I would want to figure out a way to limit the cut. I mean, we have parks, we need to maintain them, so that I feel like there's no way we could just make a total cut to that particular piece of the budget.
All right, thank you. Other candidates? Anybody have an answer? Anybody else want to respond?
Well, I think every one of our departments in our city are extremely important. Police and fire is important. Emergency management is important. Our emergency response team with our EMT services is important. Public works is important. Public utilities, the park system, on and on it goes. And I can't think of a single thing that I would ever want to get to a point to start cutting a whole department or cut a whole process out, because they are all vitally important for the building out of our city and making our city as successful as it is. And almost every one of those departments are award-winning year after year after year after year because of the quality product that each one of those put out to all the citizens here in Rowlett.
Robert? Tammy?
I don't really have anything to add. They've named all the departments that are so critical to our city. The one thing I would kind of expand on is that we are a very lean organization. We have about 422 employees, and we have one employee for every 150 residents. That is very low in the United States. For instance, places like Denver and Philly have one employee for every 50 residents, and we have one employee for every 150 residents. So we are very efficient and we are very lean, and if we were to have to cut anything, we would just have to cut back across the board. Thanks.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
I think the hardest part of that question was actually answering the part, which one would you cut? So I don't know that, I think I'm the only one that answered that so far. So I would just be curious as to know, if you're forced to cut a department, which one would that be?
Candidates?
'Cause that was-
Fair question. If you had to cut a department, which one would it be?
I would probably cut back on economic development for the time being.
Okay. Robert?
It's either that or, I mean, the only other non-essential services would be parks. Everything else we require to live on. I mean, water and service, fire and department and the police department, we really need to have it, so it would have to be parks.
Okay. Bruce?
Well, I'd like to think that I'm a positive, forward thinker and an out-of-the-box thinker, and as such, I would try to do everything I possibly could to examine each element of our budget and try to find the funds necessary to keep all of our programs intact and not cut a single one of them. I might cut some employees, I might cut some individual components of those departments, but I would do everything I could to try to figure a way to maintain them in a workable fashion instead of just eliminating them altogether.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bruce, we'll let you start with this next question. What unique qualifications, background, experience, knowledge, or talents do you have that would make you the best choice for mayor?
Thank you. I am, my family life was in around mechanical construction in Texarkana. My great-grandfather started our family business in 1900. And we kept it in our business and in our family for 90 years. I grew up in that business. I grew up watching the business operations of that. I was running big jobs when I was 15 years old. I was very involved in that, having to make critical decisions when I was way younger than I had experience to do. But my dad had taught me extremely well how to manage people, how to build consensus among his superintendents, his foremans, and those kind of people. And then in my own personal life, I spent 43 years as a pastor. And I took churches that were relatively small when I got them, and I grew them into very, very, very large churches. In that process, the one thing that was common in all of it was change, and nobody likes change. Everybody hates change. And so to build something successful and to be productive and fruitful in it, you have to sit down with people and talk with them and listen to them and build consensus and build opportunities to work together, not against each other. And I was very, very successful in doing that. I got an earned doctor's degree in administration, and in that I learned all kinds of things. I'm not a CPA, and I don't think you have to be a CPA. Our city manager is a CPA. Our finance director is a board-eligible CPA. And the bottom line to all of that is year after year after year, we get incredible awards for our financial management of our city. And I think I can read financial statements, I can understand them, I understand what trial balances are, I understand what audits are, and all that. I have built businesses from nothing, I have sold businesses, I have been an entrepreneur, I am a tree farmer in Arkansas and Louisiana, and I have a lot of skills in my skill set that I think will be very beneficial for me as mayor of the city of Rowlett.
Okay, thank you. Other candidates, you have a minute to respond.
I'll go since he mentioned CPA. CPA is not my only qualification. I've been a businesswoman for 30 years. I have immersed myself into this city in regards to boards and commissions and learned and trained and just prepared for this role for so many years. And I would say, the budget is the single most important thing that we're responsible for. We have a $92 million budget, and being responsible for your taxes and your tax dollars that comes into the city is our single most important role. The other thing I would say that makes me uniquely qualified is if you've watched me as a city council person, you'll see that I analyze everything in great detail. And I make sure all the information is out there to the public and consider the public's responses and desires and feelings about various items we consider. But I'm so analytical, and I research it and make sure we understand all aspects of it before I make a decision on anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
I don't come with vast experience on city council. I come with zero experience on city council. But I think what that does give me is a kind of a fresh set of eyes to look at things. The one thing that I do have is, we started our business in the upstairs part of my parents' home in Rowlett. We borrowed $5,000 from my grandmother. We started that business, and we've paid that back. And we have grown that business to projecting this year to be a $50 million business. Here in Rowlett, it can be done. We received no incentives from the city to start a business, have gotten none whatsoever, and that's fine. We have several employees that work for us. But I don't know how many people have experience in family business. Most people will tell you, don't do it. But the one thing that we've done and I've learned is to work together, that no one person can do this by themselves. I didn't grow the business by myself. It was my parents down there, my wife, our 150, 200 employees. That's what builds a business. That's what builds a city. Being able to work together, sit around the horseshoe, be able to talk about ideas, be able to ask the tough questions, be able to hold people accountable, and ensure that we're doing the best for our city.
Thank you, Jason. Robert?
All of my life I've been in sales and marketing, and sales and marketing means that you have to be able to communicate with people, talk to people, sell them something, whatever, buy something. So I started and bought my own travel agency here in Rowlett. It was a failing business. We grew this until we had 3 branches. I purchased another 5 offices. We had 80 agents and independent contractors working with us, and we turned that business into a $15 million travel agency. So I think I can manage a business. I don't know how to do CPA. I'm not a CPA, but I can manage it. We had everybody working for us, and in all of those fields. It's just like the city. We have all these highly paid managers and independent directors, and they know what they're doing. We need to be able to sit there on the 20,000 foot level and say, let's do this. Can we do this properly? And they know what to do. So it's not a matter of we have to be the police chief, or I don't have to be the librarian or the Parks and Recreations Board. They know what they're doing, and we just work all together on this. So 30 seconds is up.
Thank you, Robert. And we will start the next question with you, Robert. What is the elephant in Rowlett's room? In other words, what is the biggest problem or challenge the city is facing in the next 5 years that nobody talks much about? What would you do about it?
Biggest problem in Rowlett? I'd like to think there aren't any problems in Rowlett. We are growing. We have to be able to control that growth. We have to look at how it comes to Rowlett. We have to look at our infrastructure and to make sure that we can make that work for everybody as we grow. We're growing into Bayside. That's also going to be a huge investment, and we have to be able to work with that to make it work for us. As far as being an elephant, I think this is going to be a giraffe. It's going to be reaching up there, and we're going to have a great lot of taxes come in for us. Yes, we are going to have a lot more people come into town, and that's probably going to be our elephant.
Jason, go ahead.
I guess I would have to say that It's a hard question because you said, what's the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about? I think the main thing that everybody's talking about is infrastructure. I think maybe the combination of development without fixing infrastructure first is probably the biggest issue most people are, as I've gone around knocking on people's doors, hopefully I haven't bothered anybody, but I'm going out and trying to meet everybody I can. That's the main thing that people are concerned with. There are some nuanced issues here and there, but the main issue is the infrastructure. And as we development's good, but it's almost like the past few years we've kind of put the cart before the horse. We need to ensure that the infrastructure can handle the development that comes in. We don't need to be afraid of development. We need to be strategic about development, and part of that is ensuring that the infrastructure can handle the plans going forward.
Tammy or Bruce?
Well, I won't talk about infrastructure. That's an inside joke if you saw the first forum. But because everybody is talking about that, and the question was, what's the elephant that nobody's talking about? So I would say just the whole basis for how we're going to continue to operate as a city. We need a new city services complex, and we are in, I can't tell you, 15 different buildings across town with all of our city services. It's a lot of buildings. We need to figure out what to do and where to do that. And, do we stay where we're at and build a consolidated building? Do we move over to Pecan Grove? Nobody's talking about that. And it is something that is looming in the not too distant future. We've got to figure out how we're going to consolidate our city services and get these employees more centrally located so we can provide efficiencies which are currently not there. The other thing is we are very tightly staffed. And the budget that we'll be presenting this year doesn't have growth in headcount. And that's very concerning in regards to the growth we're experiencing as this community, and we're not having growth in headcount when we're a service industry. So those are the two things that we're really not talking about that concern me. Thanks.
Thank you.
From the day one that I got on the city council, I believe that one of our biggest elephants, if not the biggest elephant in the room, is what I call small-mindedness and reactive governance. And what I mean by that is I think we need to be very forward-thinking, thinking way ahead. With all these main thoroughfares in our city, like Schrady and Miller Road and Cheesa and so forth, we need to seriously be about the business of widening those and developing them and getting them done, not sitting on them for decades and never seeing them move forward in that. Some of that requires a lot of intergovernmental work, working with the Dallas County, working with the city of Dallas. I think we need to be real forward-thinking in the sense of the North Shore area and bringing large box businesses here and not just reaching up and get the latest chicken factory or the latest nail salon or the latest liquor store. And I think we don't do enough of proactive, big thinking, forward thinking ideas, and I think that's the big elephant in the room.
Thank you. So we have one more general question, and then we'll start with some specific questions. And Tammy, we start with you on this one. There's been an enormous focus on one piece of legislation in Austin this year, the so-called bathroom bill. Would you ever consider implementing an ordinance of that type here in Rowlett if it doesn't pass in Austin? Why or why not?
These questions are harder than last week. That's great. Yeah, there's a lot of things happening in Austin right now that are very interesting. The problem with the bathroom bill is it's really almost impossible to enforce. And I'm not real keen on introducing legislation that can't be enforced. So, that has to be something that's decided at the individual business level, not necessarily pushed on us at the state level. So the enforcement is the thing that I worry most about that bill.
Thank you. Jason?
The bathroom bill, wow. I I don't think the problem with the bathroom bill is enforcement. I think the problem is, in fact, the bathroom bill. To legislate segregation against people, I thought we got away from that decades ago. I mean, if you look at it as a business level, I mean, it failed horribly in North Carolina, thank God. Business-wise, there are 50 CEOs of large corporations that said, hey, wait a minute, we're going to think twice about doing business in Texas. NFL has said, hey, we're going to think twice about doing Super Bowls in Dallas or Arlington and Houston. But the biggest piece of all that makes the most difference is the ethical treatment of people. That's what matters the most. If we're willing to treat people like that, have we not just moved back decades in our society? And implementing something like that, how long will it take to move us forward? So that the bathroom bill is something that I will hopefully never have to say bathroom bill again, but even more importantly, never have to talk about again.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, I personally think that government doesn't have a place in trying to legislate people's morality and their sexuality. That's my personal opinion. And I also think that I can understand people's fears and things like that, but a lot of those fears are made up. They hype them up. They're not real. They're play-like in their mind. I have all kinds of friends that are straight, that are gay, that are transgender, that are male and female and vice versa and everything else. And I consider them some of my dearest, bestest friends in the world. And although I may not be like them or they may not be like me, I hope and pray we never have to deal with that here in Rowlett. And if we did, and it became a big issue, I think we could do like Starbucks does. They had a men's restroom and a women's restroom. There are one toilet facilities, and they just put a sign on each one of them that had a male and a female there. And when you go in there, you lock the door, and you've got one person in there doing their business, and when they leave, they do that. And I think that'd be an easy fix to the situation. But unfortunately, people are making it a lot more complicated. I was in Austin the day they had the very first public hearing on that bill, and I sat through the entire thing of it, and it was just absolutely unbelievably disturbing to be down there on that day and hear all the rancor and the ugliness and all of that.
Robert?
I'm for every person's right to choose how they want to live their life and what they want to do. It's none of my business. It's what they want out of life. I want them to help me understand why it's so important to them. A person goes into the bathroom, does their thing, goes there for 10 minutes. Is it so important which bathroom that they go to? Even the men's restroom has stalls so that they can sit in there in privacy and comfort. My biggest concern is the safety and security of the people in either bathroom, all right? Of course, we think of the women's mainly, but some of these people that identify differently, go to men's bathroom, they can also be harassed as well. So we need to protect both sides of this equation. The issue is very complex and not easily fixed. We need to think long and hard about this.
All right. So this next question is an individual question. The first one is for Jason. And again, as I told you guys before when we were talking at 6:30, some of these have rather long introductions and some different statistics and things that have been added to the questions. So just bear with me as I read these. Jason, you've made it clear that you want to be the voice of and for the people of Rowlett, and that the city isn't transparent. Some have stated that the city isn't transparent or vocal enough about issues such as the radio tower, the library relocations, and even events like the fireworks. Given that the city employs a variety of tools in an attempt to be transparent, such as water bill inserts, A-frame signs on corners, the sign in front of City Hall, Channel 16, robocalls, social media, newsletters, in addition to the meetings being televised, Can you help us understand what you would do differently to make the city more transparent?
Transparency, I do think the city's done a decent job in some areas. As I've gone out and talked to people, they have told me specifically that there are major concerns. They find it difficult to find answers. They find it difficult to navigate the website. And speaking with city staff recently, they have said that they have identified that as a problem that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed, needs to be updated. But one of the biggest issues I put out there with a post of mine last week regarding the charter and regarding, well, it was a charter issue involving resignation to run for office. And that right there, in my opinion, shows the biggest issue where transparency isn't where it needs to be. There's ambiguity in the charter, in my opinion, in the opinion of multiple attorneys. I never once said that anybody had done anything wrong. To me, that is a situation that is fraught for possible issues that need to be addressed. I feel like we need to constantly look at our policies and procedures to ensure that we are being upfront when it's just how it needs to be. And I could probably answer some of these questions a lot better once I get into the nitty-gritty of everything that actually takes place, what the specific policies are regarding information. I know there's some rules that you have to be careful. The other thing that I've noticed recently is there seems to be an exorbitant amount of executive session. Executive session is prescribed by the state of Texas and has a very specific scope and needs to be used that way. Again, I'm not saying that anybody has done anything wrong, but talking to other people, talking to other attorneys, they in large cities, it's very rare that they go into executive session as much as it seems as though our city council has gone into executive session.
Thank you. Candidates?
I'll address a couple things. So the question was, what would we do different about transparency? And there's a lot of, as Michael said, there's a lot of ways that we push or we have information out there. One of the things is you have to go out there and get that information. It's not necessarily pushed at you. And I don't know about you, but I like information pushed at me because I'm more likely to read it, more likely to have access to it. So I think we need to find ways to push it as opposed to have you pull that information from us. In addition, I think we need to do more town hall meetings, and we need two-way communication, not just having information available to you, but having forums and neighborhood meetings and ways that you can communicate back and forth to us. I think that would help a lot. In regards to what Jason just said, in regards to the ambiguity in our charter, we have a city attorney. He advises us. He is very strict on all the legalities that we need to follow. He advised us on the holdover provisions. There's no ambiguity in the Texas State Legislature Constitution. We are following those provisions accordingly. And there's no ambiguity in executive sessions. As you know, we got $1.5 billion of development coming into this city, and there's a lot of information that has to be discussed so that we don't violate contract provisions or cause problems with contracts. So thank you very much.
Robert, Bruce?
I just think that our computer system with relating to our minutes and our packets and things like that could be a lot more user-friendly. I think it's way too difficult to go in there and find specifics on a particular project or a particular this. Unless you know the exact date where it was done or this, that, and other, you have to wade through a whole lot of stuff. And I think it could be a lot more user-friendly. And one of the things that we've recently done was we're breaking out the component, the $5 component on our water and waste bill to reveal that this $5 goes to alley and street infrastructure, and I think that's a good thing. So we're working hard to do that, and we, like Tammy said, we really do need to do what we have to do in executive sessions so we don't make mistakes when we're in our regular sessions.
Robert, you have anything to add?
The only thing I would like to agree with all these comments. The only thing I would add to it is that I would like to maybe see the sessions, or the people have access to a session, so that there could be backwards and forwards questions. So I mean, there are people that are sitting at home that maybe in people that cannot come to the meetings. So they need to be able to maybe send in a question, say do something, or give their 3-minute spiel online. That's about the only thing.
Thank you. Okay, next question is specifically to Robert, and we're going to go back and address something that you started addressing in your opening statement. So let me finish the whole question, because I've got a whole page here for this question. Robert, at last week's candidate forum, you were asked a question about the city having a vibrant business community. In your response, you spoke about affordable housing and apartments. Your exact words were, "But I don't want affordable housing. I don't want apartments in this town. I want to do something so that we have real houses, not attracting the types of people that live in apartments. Given that apartment rent is typically $1,000 and up, with some projected to be $2,000 to $3,000, and given that you voted in January 2017 in favor of a resolution to support tax credits for both PEDCOR and Amtex, you also voted to create the HFC, which its sole purpose is to bring in affordable housing, and you voted in support of the apartments in Signature Gateway. Can you explain exactly what you meant by your statement?"
Since I have begun working on becoming a mayor, I had discussions with a number of people, a lot of people, and by far the greatest issue amongst everybody was no more apartments for Rowlett. So I changed my philosophy. No more apartments. This is what the people want. I'm here to serve what the people say, what they need, what they want to do. I'm not here to tell you what I think you should do or have. Yes, I voted for some of those other items, voted for Signature Gateway. I thought it was a good idea because as the zoning was already in place for like a 10-story or 20-story building, it would have been a lot better to just have a much smaller impact and smaller number of apartments, smaller number of people, and it would be better for our community. Yes, I made a faux pas the other day, and yes, I would have rather chosen some more prudent words. But sometimes you get excited, sometimes I get excited, and I lost my thing. But I still am against apartments. I want to be able to see what we have already being built, how many we have, what has been already approved, and how they will affect our community. Will we have enough? Apartments. Do we need more apartments? Do we need a whole lot more apartments in our city? I don't believe so. Do we want 100,000 people in our city? I don't think so either. So let's just see how that goes. I changed my opinion. My thought process on that evening last week was just about the criminal attitude. It was not about people with certain wages, salaries, this and that, and whatever. It has been blown out, totally out of proportion, and it's not what I was referring to.
Other candidates have any comments, responses? No? Okay. All right, next question is for Bruce. Bruce, you received a $500 campaign contribution from a senior employee of Amtex, the developer of a proposed apartment project, just weeks before council was scheduled to vote on whether to approve the plans. When it came up for the vote, it appeared you were the only one from council to city staff who had foreknowledge of major changes in the plans, and you moved to table the vote so that it wouldn't be considered until after the election. Do you think this was okay, and will you, as mayor, recuse yourself from any future votes on projects being proposed by Amtex?
Well, the only truth in that is the fact that I took a $500 donation from Gary and Kimberly Lacey, my friends. I didn't know he was a senior employee of Amtex. That's more knowledge than I know. I know that he works for Amtex, and I know that he was the spokesman for their project. The other part of it is I didn't have foreknowledge of everything that was in there. I had a conversation with him about, I wondered why those apartments didn't have elevators in it, just like I wonder why the villages don't have elevators in it. I think this is the 21st century, and when I see apartments, they're 3 stories and above, and they have no elevators in there, I think there's something really negligent with that, because you don't always know what the mobility of and ambulation of people are going to be all the time. I think that's very small-sided, once again, of how we operate in our city. When it came up and he started talking about elevators, he talked about lowering the first 2 buildings to 2 stories and widening the back buildings and doing roads things, right then and there, I knew that that was a substantial and material difference from what the Planning and Zoning Commission had reviewed and what the Development Services Department had approved. And I immediately did a point of order and asked the mayor if he'd consider an alternative motion. And he and the city attorney said it was a point of order. I made the motion. It was seconded, and it was passed 7-0 in our city council to table it, send it back to Development Services for review, and on to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that's the last I know about it. And the bottom line is, would I recuse myself in the future against that project? Absolutely not. Because the question is whether or not, when someone gives us a campaign contribution, how do we know that we are going to ever have business that they may have before the city council? We don't know that. And the second thing is that the question is, can I be objective through all of that process? And the answer is, yes, I can. And I have no intention on recusing myself on that project when it comes before the city council, if it gets to the city council. And I have no problem with accepting a contribution to my campaign from friends of mine. Like I don't think anybody else would have any problem taking campaign contributions from their friends.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Other comments?
The only reason I'm really saying anything is because this illustrates the point of why I brought it up. When you resign to run for office, and I'm not saying Bruce did anything wrong. Bruce is a great guy from what I know. So his character is outstanding. But the problem is, because of the way things go, now we all have to sit out here and think about, well, did he do that? Is there something going wrong? You know, is there a problem there? So when you resign to run for office, you should resign and not continue doing city business, because there's just a possibility that something could look bad, go wrong, any number of things. Not to say that anybody up here has done anything. I don't believe they have. The whole reason to bring it up is not to belittle or disparage any of the other candidates. It's to bring up the issue that I believe that there is a problem with the way that's written and the way it was handled, and I feel like it needs to be addressed moving forward. So,
I'd just like to add one thing. Even though Bruce brought up that issue, it was passed by the council 7-0. In other words, even if he hadn't brought it up, it would have still gone through the council 7-0. So he would not have been able to put it through on his own if he wanted to, whatever. So it was dead. Thank you.
I'd like to just add another thing. After I got that contribution and I knew this was coming up, I went to our city attorney and I said, is there anything wrong with the contribution? Is there anything wrong with me accepting this gift? Is there anything wrong with me, or do I need to recuse this thing? And the city attorney's opinion was there was nothing illegal about the contribution, there was nothing inappropriate about the contribution, and I did not have to recuse myself, and I didn't. And where the aspersion is that, I would sell my vote for $500 on a particular project here in the city. That's what was put forth in the situation. But the truth of the matter is, the night I made that alternative motion, I can assure you I did not do my friend a favor or his company a favor, because that cost him time and money, and I don't know, it could have even thrown out the tax credit situation, because that probably was time sensitive. So I didn't do him a favor by doing that, and that's what I'd like to say. But people who know me know that all those aspersions and this, that, and other were nothing but just fabricated lies and negative things to just try to put on me and stick. But unfortunately, there's nothing here to stick to.
Okay. Tammy, did you have any comments? Okay, I'm gonna follow this up with a question to Jason on your comment. So, given that we have a unique situation here in Rowlett, and your concerns about the holdover provision that's in the Texas Constitution, and the charter doesn't address that. When the charter doesn't address something, then we fall back to the Texas Constitution. In this situation, we have 4 council members, these 3, and the mayor who've resigned. That would leave 3 sitting council members to run the city. Do you think that's the right answer? Or, and this may be way above your pay grade, so to speak, for that kind of question, but so what's the right answer? If the holdover clause in the Texas Constitution isn't the right answer, do we run the city with 3 council members? That's not even a quorum of the 7. What do you recommend, or do you have a suggestion?
Well, from what it was explained to me, and I'm not an attorney and will not claim to be one, but how it was explained to me is that it's fairly clear for the mayor situation. So with the 3 stepping down, there would have been a quorum with the other 3 and the mayor is the 4th vote. That's my understanding. Not saying it's correct, but speaking with 4 different attorneys regarding this situation, that's how it was explained to me. Yeah, that's a difficult situation. I don't know that standing right here that I've got the specific answer. I think it needs to be discussed. Surely there is legal precedent somewhere else to look at and see what other cities have done if that has happened. So I don't know that I've got the answer right here. So I apologize for that. So.
That's fair.
Can I
Yeah,
follow up?
Tammy.
So there is legal precedence, and this is what other cities do, and this is what our charter calls for, and this is what the Texas Constitution calls for. And this isn't an issue. This isn't a legal issue. This is the holdover provision is absolutely enforceable. The issue is integrity. And, are you acting in a manner of integrity after you have resigned your office when you continue with city business? And that's something that you have to decide as the public. Are we still acting with integrity? And that's the only issue here, because there is legal precedence and other cities follow the same provision, and that is the Texas Constitution.
Okay, next question is for you, Tammy. So a minute ago, we were discussing perceived conflicts of interest. So we're going to go back to that in this next question. It appears to some that you may have a commercial conflict with your ownership and affiliation with Seniors Helping Seniors, Eastern Dallas and Rockwall counties. Will you commit to recuse yourself from any votes concerning retirement homes, senior care, and assisted living facilities, et cetera?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. I saw that on Facebook the other day and chose not to answer, but I'd love to answer it in person. So I do have a senior care business. It's an assistive services business. And what we do is we provide assistance to seniors in their homes when they need a little bit of help in everyday activities, such as companionship, such as transportation, such as shopping assistance, such as light housekeeping, laundry services. So we help seniors that cannot be independent in their home. The main activities in the city that we have to do with seniors is approving the budget. And some of the things that we have funded over the last couple of years, I have been the driver of that because we need services for our seniors in our community. The seniors in our community are a huge part of our community. And it really benefits all of us if we have adequate service levels for our seniors. One of the things that I pushed for that we are now providing is transportation for our seniors, free transportation for our seniors. I, as a business, provide transportation for our seniors. So pushing that and getting that approved takes business away from me. But that doesn't matter. That is the right thing to do for our seniors. Another thing that I pushed for was to have first a part-time programmer, and secondly, a full-time programmer turned into a full-time programmer for our seniors to have socialization activities. Again, that is in direct contradiction of what I do as a business, because we provide those socialization services in the home. So there's no conflict of interest here. We don't go into assisted living facilities to provide that type of care. We're providing care in the homes to help them with everyday activities of life. So thank you.
Anyone have any follow-up comments? No? Okay.
And no, I would not recuse myself because I do not think it's a conflict of interest. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a general question, and we'll go back to the order we were in before, and Jason, we'll let you start with this one. Some of this you may have covered in your introductions, but we're going to go through this question again. It's a short question. How long have you lived in Rowlett? What is your current occupation, and what do you consider to be your number one priority in service to the citizens of Rowlett as mayor?
I did cover some of that, but I will gladly do it again. Currently, I've lived in Rowlett for 13 going on 14 years. The first time we lived in Rowlett was, I think, in 1984, 85. We lived here as a family. Moved back to Rowlett in 2003 and, of course, started our business. I'm the CEO of Berry Family Services, and Berry Family Services is we have contracts, multiple contracts with the state of Texas to provide long-term services and supports. And what that means is we have group homes, we provide attendant care, foster care, therapies, nursing, adaptive aids, dental services, kind of the full gamut. And we're the largest provider of those services in the North Texas area, serving close to 600 people in North Texas, 1,200 people throughout the state of Texas. The biggest issue, I think, and I think it's been covered by everybody, is infrastructure, but also the combined piece of development before infrastructure is where it needs to be. So I think that covered most of the question. So,
Anybody else?
I have lived here 25 years and 8 months, my wife said today. I'm currently not in a job. I am a city councilman. I count that as a job. All right. I sold my travel agency a little while ago. What I would like to do as a mayor is be a communicator with everybody, be able to talk to you, be able to listen to you. As I said before, I've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, so I've got a lot of listening to do, and I'll talk back to you, but I want to hear from you so that we can do the things that you want us to do.
I've lived here 20 years, and my family lived in Texarkana for 127 years. And in 2015, after my mother's death and everything, we sold every remaining piece of property that we had there, and now we all live here in Rowlett. My brother's built a house here over in Lindsay Estates. My daughter owns a home in Lake Bend, and we live in Dowell Rock Heights off of Dowell Rock. And I'm semi-retired. I have a counseling practice called Agape Counseling Clinic, LLC. And I see 10 to 12 patients on Monday, and I treat psychiatric and addiction issues. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist with supervisory privileges from the state of Texas, as well as a nationally board certified addiction counselor and addictionologist, and I'm Harvard trained in the area of psychiatry and addiction medicine. I also am a tree farmer. I have 2 pine tree plantations, one in Emerson, Arkansas, and one in Dykesville, Louisiana. And I have other investments and so forth. I'm the trustee of the Hargrave Memorial Trust, and I also am the president of Bruce Hargrave Charities.
Thank you. Tammy?
I always hate following his credentials. I've been in Rowlett for 15 years, and I currently own and operate Seniors Helping Seniors. And it's a huge departure from my previous professional life. And I do this because I get my strength from seniors. I hire seniors to take care of seniors. And I'm providing just huge benefits to both my employee base and my client base. They've really developed relationships. I'm able to provide employment opportunities for seniors. And I do about a third of my time with city business, although right now it's about 90% of my time with city business. I do about a third of my time with Seniors Helping Seniors because I want to and I can, and my husband has been wonderful to support our family and let me do these things that I love to do. And then I spend about a third of my time on my family. So what I want to accomplish, the biggest thing, there's many things to accomplish, but the biggest thing is we've got all this investment, private investment coming into our town. We've got to realize the benefits of that to make our community better.
All right, Bruce, we're going to start with you on this next question. Again, this is a general question for all of you. As home values have risen, we've had massive net tax increases, and homeowners need relief before we are priced out of being able to remain Rowlett citizens. With that in mind, are you willing to commit, with no equivocation, to a property tax rate cut? Commit with no equivocation to a property tax rate cut.
Absolutely. Last year was my first year to deal with this, and right at the very first retreat we had after my election, I started talking about 5 cents over 5 years. And I thought that was a good start, a good place to be. My idea about it, after some conversations I had during the running for the office with Larry Beckham about how the taxes had been increased by 4 cents and so forth to make up for the losses during the recession and everything. I thought, well, we would give that 4 cents back plus a penny. That was my basic idea about that. All through our conversations through the summer and getting into the fall, I thought we had all the votes lined up to make that become a reality. On the night of the vote, I made the motion to lower the tax rate by 1 cent, the beginning of that 5 cent over 5 year period of time, was seconded, and when it went to a vote, it went 3-3. And then Rick Sheffield made a plea, I call it the famous not now speech about infrastructure and alleys and so forth. Vote was flipped, and the next thing that happened, it went down in flames on a 4-3 vote. I was stunned that night. I couldn't believe it. This year, I began touting, because the property values had gone up so much, a 7 cent decrease over a 7 year period of time. And I'm pleased to report that I believe we are going to be successful in getting that first penny of that 7 cents this year in our budget. That is certainly what the city manager is recommending, and it meets all of the needs and things that we need to do in the city, and it actually even gives us a $42,000 surplus. And I am absolutely for lowering our tax rate, especially with our valuations going up.
Thank you. Jason?
I'm all for lowering taxes. I would be a complete moron if I got up here and said, no, we need to raise taxes and keep it going. The only thing that I would say that we need to think about, and we all experienced this, I believe it was the 83rd session, when they decided to do a sweeping tax cut on ad valorem property taxes. Well, going into the 84th session, or was it 82nd to 83rd? I forget the dates, but either way, we all know when that happened. And everybody loved, yay, we saved money, we saved money. Going into the next session, the comptroller said that we are in a $25 billion shortfall. So the only thing that I would say, I would love to say this lower taxes, just do it as fast as we can. That's important, yes. But maintaining the city is more important. So yes, we need to figure out a way to lower the taxes, but we don't need to do it in a way that puts the city in any type of stress financially, or and the fact that the citizens are already carrying the bulk of the liability for the city at 80 to 20. So where I would support one if it made sense, I need more information. I need to be able to study the budget, break it down, and look at all those factors before I can come out and say, yes, this year we need to lower it by a penny. If it's doable, then absolutely.
Thank you. Robert?
My policy is to reduce taxes by 5 cents over 5 years. However, it has to be economically viable, and I have to have the support of the council. I mean, I can't do it by myself, so we have to get everybody on board to do this. But as Bruce said, we've already projected to have a 1 cent decrease this year, so let's get the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy?
So last year, Bruce and I were the only two council members that supported a 1 cent tax decrease. And that was very disappointing to us because we had the room in the budget last year. It does look like we'll have the room in the budget this year, and that's important. We have the 5th highest tax rate in the county of Dallas, and we've got to do something to reduce that. That's why we've been working so hard to diversify our tax base. We are so dependent on our residential properties and for the individual citizens to bear the brunt of that tax that we've been working really hard to diversify our tax base so that we can lower that tax rate. That is the goal of myself, and that is what I'm talking about when I say we have to realize the benefit of all this private investment that is coming into our town. And I hope that we do get support this year for that 1 cent tax decrease, and it doesn't change at the dais. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another general question for all the candidates. We'll start with you on this one, Robert. The city of Rowlett, with a population approaching 60,000, has been a member city of DART for over 30 years and has been paying 1 penny of our sales tax since then. That amount comes to over $100 million. Last year, it was over $7 million. Presently, there are only 1.5 bus routes serving our city and on-call service only available to 1/3 of our citizens. What do you plan to do to ensure mass transit by bus is available to more, if not all, of the citizens of Rowlett?
I think the 1 penny tax relates more to the train, but I think we're also having discussions with DART to see if we can open up the whole area, at least to have an on-call bus throughout the city of Rowlett. So we're working on that at the moment. It is being planned or discussed anyway, and we'll see what we can do.
Tammy?
So I've been working with Mark Enoch, who is our DART representative. I opened up those discussions this year again. We've worked with him throughout the years, addressing several different things. One is our parking lot at the DART train station is getting pretty full. 2 is we don't have good bus routes throughout the town. And 3 is we have spotty DART on-call services. So at my request, Mark has been working with the DART officials, and they're doing a complete program review as we speak in connection with their September 30th year end to see what our service levels are and how we can improve those service levels. Mark is due to respond back to me within the next 30 days, and then we will take it from there to continue to pressure DART to provide the service levels we need for this community to service all of our residents.
Thank you. Jason, either one? Okay. All right, so the next question is an individual question, and we're going to start with we're going to let you, this one's addressed to you, Robert, if I get the words out. So, Robert, the Chamber of Commerce has an important role in the city, from helping recruit new businesses to business retention. The previous Chamber President, Diane Lemons, spent quite a while building back the relationship that the city has with the Chamber, which in the past had not been so great. Several months ago, you left the chamber and publicly stated that you had resigned. However, if you're elected mayor, or how, if elected mayor, would you continue the relationship between the city and the chamber?
Chamber is vital to Rowlett, and as a part of Rowlett on the city government as a mayor, we would need to work with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm quite happy to reinstate that relationship. I mean, I still have a lot of friends, relationships with all the board members in the chamber, so I would be happy to keep that going. We need the chamber. I mean, with Bayside coming up, the chamber needs to be able to create relationships with all those new businesses down there, and it's going to be very beneficial for the chamber as well as the city.
Tammy?
Just want to add a little bit to that. Over the last 4 years, we've worked really hard, and Diane Lemons was a big part of that, but we've worked really hard to solidify that relationship between the city and the chamber. They're a big part of our economic development. They're a big part of our business retention. Several years ago, they asked us for increased funding. They are in a very, very slim budget. And we decided as a council that we wanted to provide that support, but we also wanted accountability. So we set up a really good program where if we were going to provide additional funding, that there would be that accountability back to the city and the partnership between the chamber and the economic development department. So that has really improved the relationship over the last 4 years, and it was based on a recognition by both the chamber and city council that we needed to improve that relationship, and we see nothing but good going forward with Michael at the helm now.
Thank you, Tammy. Bruce?
The Chamber of Commerce is an absolute essential tool that we have in our city governance that is very, very important. The Chamber Foundation, for example, is a vital, important part of our economic development scheme of things. As a member via my trust, I have a lot of friends that are members of the Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate their camaraderie. I appreciate especially the ambassadors that go out and they make contacts all over the city and share that good word and goodwill about our city with new businesses coming in, the ribbon cuttings and all of that. I think it's just an essential tool of that. And we shouldn't do anything really to just, cut our nose off to spite our face, so to speak, with regard to the chamber. We need to build those relationships and foster those relationships more than build wedges and create conflicts with the chamber that we don't necessarily need to do.
Jason, comment?
I echo everybody's sentiment. I think the chamber is vital. Chamber is very vital to all cities to improve economic development, to help vet business that's coming into Rowlett. So I absolutely would support and would want to continue those efforts with the chamber.
Thank you. And I hope you feel this way, every one of you, after the debate is over tonight. All right, next question is for you, Jason. You've missed some of the local events lately, notably the first debate held by the Rowlett Democrat Club, the Flower Hill Block Party, which several candidates did attend, and the candidate orientation. You also have a 50% attendance rate at the P&Z meetings, for which you are an alternate member. The position of mayor requires much more than attendance at just 2 meetings per month and can take a major portion of your time, both daytime and multiple evenings a week. Given your role as CEO at Berry Family Services, will you be able to make the necessary sacrifices and available to serve as mayor?
I absolutely will. I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't willing to commit my time and effort and sacrifice to being a leader for the city. To address the reason why I missed those 3 events, I think it was around November, if I'm correct, we had booked a family trip, non-refundable, to Chicago. We had spoken to the Rowlett Democratic Club. They had confirmed at one point that I would be able to have a representative stand in for me there. We were told the night before that that wouldn't be possible. I was told by city staff that I would be able to have a representative at that orientation. I was told 2 days before, no, you will not be able to have a representative at that meeting. I get it, I understand, it's not me, it's a representative. But in November, I didn't know that Todd was going to resign as mayor. So when we booked that, it's very difficult to answer that other than with just the truth and honesty. I would have done anything I could to be at those events. But I had made a previous commitment long before the election and long before the resignation of Todd to my family that I needed to honor. In mayor, being elected mayor, I already know that I would be mayor, and I would handle my schedule accordingly. The fact that we have such a wonderful business and wonderful staff, I'm not the only one that runs it. I am a major part of that, but we have great people working for us. You know, that's what any business hopes to get to, is that one day you can step aside to do other things and the business still flourish, and it absolutely will. I've had to step aside quite a bit just, in the last 6 weeks to campaign and deal with the stuff regarding the election. So I do apologize that I didn't make those events. It's not something that I sat out to do. I really just had no choice in that. So thank you.
Thank you. Bruce?
The city council requires more time than you can actually imagine. And as mayor, it requires even more time because there are so many other events that you go to that is the result of your office. Back in June, I had a meeting that I needed to attend in Atlanta, Georgia. I had a non-refundable airplane ticket. I had my hotel booked and paid for and all that stuff. But on that particular day that I was supposed to leave, or the day before our city council meeting, we had a very important set of things coming before the city council, and I canceled my hotel in Atlanta. I ate the price of the airplane tickets. I ate the price of my hotel rooms that were paid for and everything, so that I could stay here in Rowlett and take care of the citizens' business. And I think that's the whole idea, is that you make the sacrifices that you're necessary in your servant leadership role as the mayor of the city. And I am basically retired, and I do have the time to devote to the city's business. And I'm pleased to do it. I'm pleased to offer my servant leadership to the citizens of Rowlett, and I look forward to doing that and continuing to do that.
Thank you. Robert?
When I joined the council 4 years ago, they told me, you just got 2 meetings a month. And I said, oh, well, that's good.
They lied.
Sorry?
They lied.
Yes, they lied a lot. It's like 2 or 3 meetings a week. Just this month, for example, we have 4 council meetings, and then there's all sorts of other things. And the only time we get a little bit of a break is usually in the last week of the month. But yes, unless you don't have any kids, and if you don't have this and that and whatever, like me, I don't have any children. My wife is very understanding. I'm allowed out, and that's what you have to do. I mean, yes, you have to get out and do things, all sorts of things. You understand, don't you?
Thank you, Robert. Tammy?
I'll just add a couple things to that. This is a personal decision sometimes. Sometimes it's inevitable. I've been on council for 4+ years. I've missed things too. It happens. But I will tell you that city council has been my #1 priority for the entire term that I've been in council. The only time I have missed my son's hockey games is when they coincided with a city council meeting, because city council came first. Unfortunately, I had to miss hockey games once in a while. When I decided to run for mayor this summer, there was several things I did. One, I immediately left to go visit my mother in Michigan, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to leave for several months because I needed to be here for this election. 2, I canceled my summer vacation plans because, again, I knew I needed to be here for all these debates, all these meetings. And 3, I am missing my very dear niece's wedding coming up because, again, for the same reason. And those are just the personal decisions I made, and that's all about my commitment to this community and to you as the residents of this community.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy. The next question is for you, Tammy. You have supported both of the recent tax increment reinvestment zones, or TIRZ, decisions at the 50% level. Doesn't this effectively keep half of the tax revenue in those areas which seemingly need it the least? And how can you justify not using 100% of those funds throughout the entire city?
Oh, the TIRZ is a very complex situation. There's two TIRZ zones that are active in the city of Rowlett. One is Bayside, so I'll talk about that first. So for Bayside, we approved a tax increment reinvestment zone for 20 years at the 50% level. In regards to Bayside, we got something great for nothing. We as a city are required to develop infrastructure for property that we own, and we don't have the funds to fund that infrastructure for Bayside. So we dedicated a 50% tax increment reinvestment zone area so that the Bayside can pay for itself. So it's not a situation where we're giving 50% away. It's a situation where we got 50% for nothing. We didn't use the general funds of the city and your general tax dollars to fund the infrastructure of Bayside. We're using the tax dollars generated at Bayside at a 50% level to fund the infrastructure for Bayside. So that's something that's real important to understand. The other TIRZ that we approved, the city staff came to us and they wanted a 30-year TIRZ for downtown at 100% participation level. We ultimately approved a 20-year TIRZ at a 50% participation level. As you know, we're trying to change the face of downtown. We're trying to make sure we capitalize on the $100 million investment that the citizens of this city have paid into DART. $7 million a year the citizens of this city pay into DART. And that was by vote of the citizens. It is our responsibility as public officials that we make sure we get a return on that investment. You didn't pay $100 million to DART over the last several years so that you can pay $1.50 to ride the train downtown. You paid in $100 million so far to DART so that we can benefit from that investment that came into our town. We have needs downtown. One of them we talked about a lot is parking. A TIRZ can help us with that parking solution. So it's a way to strategize investment in a particular area so that we can continue with our goal to develop that specific area. And that's why we approved and I supported the TIRZ. Thanks.
Thank you, Tammy. Anyone else have any comments? Bruce?
Well, I'd like to add that the TIRZ down at Bayside is a very unique thing in the sense that the baseline for that was 0. So over the next 20 years, half of that tax goes back to the developer for the infrastructure investment that they did. The good news about that is we didn't have to issue general obligation bonds and pay an interest rate on that for 20 or 30 years, which would cost more of the taxpayers' money. It didn't cost us anything except half of those taxes, which our basis was 0. And we get that for 20 years like that. And then beyond that, after year 25, the city of Dallas gets 25% of our property taxes down there, and we get 75% of the property taxes in perpetuity. And the TIRZ downtown in that particular thing, the baseline was whatever the taxes were that was set on the day that we created the TIRZ. We still get those taxes. And the difference is in the incremental difference as time goes on. As the investments get larger and larger, we get half and they get half for 20 years. There's been so much misinformation and distortion and just out and out lying about the TIRZ and what it does and what it doesn't do, but it is an excellent tool that the city has at its disposal to actually save the taxpayers' money and to actually provide quality investments within the city of Rowlett, at least in very restricted zones. And I think it's a wonderful tool that we have.
Thank you, Bruce. Either one of you? Okay. All right, this next question is for Bruce, and Robert, it applies to you as well, so a portion of it is it's really for both of you. So you both are proposing property tax reductions over several years. Robert, last year you actually voted against the tax reduction when there was room in the budget to allow for it. Can both of you take a minute to explain how you will ensure that city services to our citizens are not reduced or eliminated, and employee pay will be brought up to the median levels of surrounding cities, even with the tax cut?
Right this second, we are very much underpaying our fire and emergency personnel and police department and our what we call open range employees, the rest of it, at about, on an average of about 9.5% less than what we need to. And this year, when we met in our retreat, our city council retreat, we talked about the different options. The most expensive of the option was item number C, and that's the one we adopted, which basically increases our budget by $1.74 million. That brings all of our staff positions, our fire, our police, our emergency personnel, and our open range employees within just a fraction of 1% to that 9.5% that we want to be at. It requires, the way we're able to do that is because of the valuations of our property that came from the Dallas County Appraisal District. And we know how much money we're going to get. That being said, that's included in this new budget, as well as so many other things that we need to do and purchase and have and so forth. And we still have enough money to give the tax reduction as well as have a surplus left over of about $42,000. Next year, we will still have to add a considerable amount to our budget for our staff, but after next year, it'll be just a regular thing that we'll be able to keep up with on a regular basis. And I really, as long as our valuations are going up like we are led to believe by the Dallas County Appraisal District, I don't think we'll have any problem with reducing our taxes.
Thank you, Bruce. Robert?
I voted against that tax because it was only a small amount of money, and you would have been able to buy 4 or 5 cups of coffee out of that. Yet when we combine all of that money together, we would have been able to do an alley, a street repair, which we did. And so that's why I voted for it, or against the tax reduction. I mean, $20, $40 for you, is that important over a period of time, 1 year? Probably not. We tried to spend that in the best way we could. Just following up with this, if we had not increased the salaries of the fire department and the police department, they would have gone. And it would have been very difficult to get new staff. We have to train them. It takes 1.5 years to train them. It takes countless amount of money to train them. So it's better to bring the salaries up and keep them, because we need them. We can't steal them from other places.
Jason, go ahead.
I still go back to the comment I made last Thursday, with us having one of the highest tax rates in the county, and to be so woefully underpaying our staff, our first responders, to have roads that you can't drive on. And we've passed bond elections to get things fixed. They're still not getting fixed. Lowering taxes is very important, but it's not the only answer that's going to make everybody happy. It's very important, but we have to have money to take care of these issues. If the money is not coming in droves from all this economic development that's been taking place, which it's not yet, is right now the best time to lower taxes? It's hard for me to give a definitive yes or no because I'm not in the weeds with everything like my three opponents are, so I don't have all the very specifics. But what I do know is it needs to be analyzed, but first and foremost, we do need to take care of the people that are taking care of us, and we need to take care of the streets that we drive on every day.
Okay, thank you. Tammy, did you want to add anything?
You can't not talk when all three talk, right? So I guess what I'll add is our personnel is 88% of our general fund. So 88% of our general fund is in salaries to our personnel, and that is what we are. We are a service industry. Turnover is incredibly expensive. We've estimated that we spent $500,000 on inefficiencies and turnover over the last 2 years. We've got to stem the flow of turnover. Our employees are our service levels. So I am in support of bringing our employees up to market. This economy in Texas is very problematic in a lot of ways in that the salaries are increasing and the competition is increasing. So we've had high levels of turnover in our public works department, and we need to get that under control, and that's what we plan to do in this budget year. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, the next question is a general question for all the candidates. Anybody remember who I left off with? Who is next? We'll just start over with Jason. Is that all right? You were number one, so we'll start over with you, Jason. Do you favor the trend toward more high-density housing development? Why or why not?
Not necessarily. I'm in favor of Rowlett taking care of its needs and its citizens and doing what the citizens need. I am in favor of ensuring that we make sure that this is a welcoming town for everybody and that there's housing for everybody's needs. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of high-density housing, but you can look around in other areas and see that is kind of a trend, but that doesn't necessarily mean that makes sense in Rowlett. So any project, whether it's business or residential, needs to be looked at and addressed and analyzed and make sure that we're making the right decision to fit the needs of our citizens.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
I agree. We need to evaluate what we have, what is being built, and what was being planned to see whether we need it all or need more. How it impacts the city, whether it brings in taxes, brings in work, brings in schools for the children and the traffic. Can we handle it? So we need to be able to assess or get the return on investment for all of these things first before we start planning on any more. And so my platform is no more apartments. I'm sorry.
Well, in a simple sentence, we on the City Council and on the Planning and Zoning Commission are basically charged with making a decision about anything that comes before us of whether or not it is for the highest and best use. Now, we have many aids to help us do that. We have our codes, we have our zoning, we have our comprehensive plan, we have all kinds of things that help us, but in the final analysis, we have to do that. I disagree with Jason and Robert both on this because I am for a diversification of housing product in our city. Not everybody can afford a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house. They just can't. And it's no fault of their own. Maybe they're a school teacher, a single school teacher with a master's degree. They can't afford one of those houses. Their debt-to-income ratios are too high and they can't get a loan. And I think we need to provide various housing products for everybody. That's one of the reasons I push so hard to create a housing finance corporation, because under state law, it has legal avenues that a normal finance company or a mortgage lender does not have that can assist and facilitate the development of single-family projects, multi-family projects that will absolutely help us with a diversification of housing product here in the city.
Just to defend my comment, I never said I was opposed to or I'm only for $300,000 or $400,000 houses. I don't live in a $300,000 house. So that's absolutely not what I said, nor what I meant. Personally, as a person, I am not a fan of high-density housing, but I'm not the only person that lives in this city. What I said was I want to do what's best for the city. Now, I do have concerns with doing what's trendy. As you can tell what I'm wearing, I'm not the most trendy person to walk this planet. So but we need to do what's best for the city. We need to make right decisions. And if high density housing makes sense, then that's what we need to do. If it's what we need for the citizens of Rowlett, then that's what we need to do. So I'm not really opposed to any type of housing. What I'm for is what's good for our city.
Tammy.
So name me one community that will say they're for apartments. There aren't any that say they're for apartments. We have to diversify our housing mix. That was something that was set out in our comprehensive plan, and we have to do that in the right way. We have to have the right developments in the right places for the right reasons. Harmony Hills is a great example of a very successful multifamily development. It's on the outskirts of town. It filled up before it was even completed. There's a waiting list for phase 2. It's been a huge success, and it's been able to service a part of our community that we have not been able to service before. Young professionals just coming out of their education, older adults that don't want to have a single-family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Evergreen is another incredible example of something we needed terribly in our community. Independent senior living, which had benefits to our seniors that couldn't afford market rates. So just to say, are you for or against density? I've already talked about downtown, the village of Rowlett. We have an obligation to maximize our investment that we've spent on DART, and we're being irresponsible as public officials if we don't do that. So in the right places for the right reasons. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bruce, we'll start with you on this one. Again, this question's for all the candidates. As mayor, what can and will you do to bring more upscale restaurants to Rowlett?
Well, I have a lot of ideas about restaurants and everything. For one reason, I like to eat. And I like to eat in fine restaurants, and I'm not particularly fan of just some of these El Quico restaurants that pop up everywhere. My favorite restaurant in Austin, Texas, is the Hula Hut. It's at the end of 15th Street at Lake Austin. It's Polynesian Mexican food. It's absolutely fantastic. It's wonderful. They make millions and millions and millions of dollars down there, and they pay all kinds of money into taxes into the city of Austin and into Travis County. The owner of that restaurant put one in Little Elm on Lake Louisville, and it was a very successful restaurant out there. It still is, very successful. That owner lives in Heath. And his financial advisor for a number of years was Tom Fulton, who built the Fulton Building downtown. I talked to our economic development director about contacting him about the creation of a hula hut right here in our city. Nothing ever happened of it. I mentioned it to our city manager. Nothing ever happened to it. It's that same kind of reactive idea about that I talked about earlier, that we need to break out of that reactive mode and get into a proactive mode and go after things that we hear through the grapevine or whatever and follow it up. How terrible is it to pick up a phone and try to make an appointment with somebody and sit down there with them and do that? I didn't do it because I thought that was what our staff was supposed to be doing. But I really believe that there are all kinds of things that can happen if we think a little more progressively, a little more positively, a little more out of the box, a little more proactive, that we can actually really go after these things instead of just sitting around waiting on it all to come to us.
Thank you, Bruce. Who wants to go next?
So one of the things that, we want more infrastructure and less taxes. We want more restaurants but less density. And it's very hard to balance all that. No restaurant's going to come in if they can't survive. And we do not have a daytime population, which causes a problem with a lot of the restaurants. One of the things that we've done, and you probably noticed this, we have 2 pad sites just across from the village of Rowlett. That's city-owned property, and we have been preserving that and marketing to lots of individual concepts. We don't want chains in here. We want high-quality individual concepts in here, like Bankhead Brewery. The only reason Bankhead Brewery came to downtown is they knew the village was coming. There is no way Bankhead Brewery would have came to downtown without the village being developed. So we are out there right now marketing, and we will be seeing additional investment in, high quality individual restaurants that will come into this community. Several are in the works right now, and I'm very optimistic that that will be coming.
Thank you.
Maybe we should set up a committee of all of our citizens, and we could just say, come and tell us, or would you like to be on our committee to tell us what sort of restaurants we need? I think more heads rubbing together, the better it is, but we need to get these people to come to Rowlett, and as Tammy said, it's difficult because we don't have a lunchtime population. Everybody leaves town. So unless you're somebody that does breakfast and dinner, then it makes it difficult.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Jason?
I absolutely want more restaurants. Now, we're here during lunchtime, so it does get old going to the same place. One thing I would like to do is go around taste testing all around Dallas to different restaurants that aren't here. Yeah. We can do that together.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the start of the committee, so regardless of election. So absolutely, we need more restaurants here. I think there's some great ideas out there to do that. So, but like with any business, there's a reason to come to Rowlett. It's a great place to have a business. It's a great place to live. We just need to do everything in our power to show that to these businesses, and then they'll want to come here and take care of all of our needs. So.
Okay, thank you. And I want to put a special request in for Hard 8 Barbecue. Ate there last night in the Colony, and they're amazing. Lots of protein. All right, next question, and I think, Robert, we're to you to start for this one. This is a general question again. What would you do to promote the use of solar panel systems to reduce electric costs for residents and businesses and make Rowlett a more green-friendly city? And would you favor developers who use solar in their design? Why or why not?
I think everybody would like to save money, and electric panels would be an ideal way of doing it. I'm not so sure about the technology about it, but whether some people have told me that it's good and they've saved money. I often wonder, if a good house storm comes along, is it going to survive all that? But if a developer could come to us and say, yes, we want to put these panels on, would we give them some sort of incentive to do so or not? I think so, but I would have to be sure that it works and that it would be worthwhile for the customers and it would be worthwhile for the city.
I think solar panels, any type of green energy is another way for Rowlett to kind of take that step forward, be a leader. One thing that I would want to do is talk to other cities like San Francisco, Chicago, other cities that have already done this and have already implemented this, so that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. I don't really have a lot of expertise in solar panels, but what I do know is I have a 4-year-old son, and I want to make sure that he has a place to live that's viable for him and future generations. So There are cities that have done it well and are continuing to do it well, have become very clean, green communities. And in Texas, I think we have a golden opportunity to be a leader in that area.
Thank you, Jason. Bruce?
Years and years ago, when I was 14, I became an Eagle Scout. And one of the reasons I did that was because I really believed in the Scout laws. And one of those was the Scout law of thriftiness. Thriftiness was basically being a good steward of all the things that you had been given, whether it was the dirt, whether it was the trees, whether it was the air, whatever it was, you were to be a good steward of that and be thrifty in your behavior with those things. In my personal life, recently, I was interviewed by the MetroTex Association of Realtors for a possible endorsement, of which I did not get. But during that thing, they asked about this whole idea about solar and things, and I just gave the litany of what my wife and I had done. We have weather stripped our house. We have put everything that we could put in our house with the highest energy efficient ratings. We don't have solar panels, although I wanted to do that, but I couldn't make the cost analysis work. So instead of that, I pay an extra penny per kilowatt hour to guarantee that all the energy that comes into our house is green energy. I have rain barrels in 6 different locations on my property that allows me to catch the rainwater and then reuse that rainwater in terms of soil conservation and watering and all kinds of different needs like that. I think it's important to be good stewards of what we do, whether it's individuals or whether it's the city, and I didn't have anybody mandating me to do that. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And I challenge everybody all the time to do the same thing that I did. And I would want to do that in the city as well.
Tammy?
I'm for green. I can't add anything very important. I'm for green.
Just one more thing. I also, talking about water and whatever, I have a 3,000-gallon water tank in my backyard, and I save all the water off the roof. If we get half an inch of rain, it almost fills that thing up, and I can use the sprinkler or whatever. In fact, I was using the sprinkler during the drought, and it got me into, people were staring at me. So it is a very good thing to do. Cost you $1,000, cost me $1,000. It has saved me a lot of money too. Probably the city is a little bit upset with me because they're not selling me that water.
Probably.
Thank you, Robert. All right, Tammy, this next question is a general question, but we're going to start with you. There's a perception that the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission regularly reduce building standards, specifically as it pertains to building apartments. As mayor, how will you handle requests to use different materials than specified by our building code?
Well, that's something that we've identified as an issue, and we really don't want to be making exceptions. So one of the things we're undergoing right now is just to re-look at all of our codes and to determine exactly where we want to land on that, because we shouldn't be making exceptions. We should have zoning regulations that work and that we should be following. So we've identified that, and we'll be working through that with P&Z and with the City Council to make sure that we can standardize that and quit making so many exceptions. The other thing that I wanted to bring up in regards to that is it feels like we're making lots of exceptions on form-based code, and we'll be looking at that, not just building materials, but form-based code. So we really need to make sure that what we have in place works for us and that we're not working on an exception basis, and we'll be undergoing that process also.
Thank you. Jason?
That whole idea is really what kind of spurred my wanting to do more within the city. Going to the work group sessions as an alternate, I had a lot to learn about. I'm not a planner or developer of property, so I had a lot to learn. And in the work group sessions, just over and over, we've got to stop doing this. We got to make sure they build to our standards, and then we get into the meeting and seemed like just unanimously over and over, it got approved. And that became so frustrating just over and over again. We have standards in Rowlett. We need to hold the people that want to come here and do business to those standards. And we've got to have someone that has the fortitude to ensure that those standards are met for the entire city.
Thank you.
I think when you bring in a new standard, all right, everybody thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But as you go along, you find out that, oh, maybe we should have put the light poles a little further apart, or we should do this or that. And it kind of makes sense that these things should be doing, because the developers keep coming back to us and say, we need to do this and we need to do this, and it's the same request. So that's why we're also going into a new format, or we're revising it or looking at it to see whether we need to make any changes to it, so that in future we can come up with this standardized thing and say, you got to stick to it.
Bruce?
We have a number of issues with our various codes that people, the developers and so forth, just keep pushing the envelope. 40 years ago, I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission of the city of Mesquite, and almost every meeting that came up, a developer would come in there and say, well, we've got this acre of ground and we want to put 4 houses on it, but that's what the code says, but we want to put 5 on there. Well, why do you think they want to put 5 houses on an acre when the code says 4? The reason is they get to put another house on there without the cost of the land, and it's more money in their pocket. That's the bottom line. We used to do parking spaces where they were 10 feet by 18 feet, 180 square feet. Now, here in the city of Rowlett, we do 9 feet by 18 feet. We've cut it by a foot. You put 2 Suburbans side by side and you can't get in or out of them. We need to really look at dimensions of parking places and how many parking places. Like in these multifamily buildings and everything, you get 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Well, if you got me and my wife in there and we both have a car, we're a half car short before we ever get started. This is my big problem that I have with Harmony Hills. It's not the project, it's the parking up there. And when our citizens are getting ticketed for parking in the fire lane because there's nowhere else to park, that's not their fault, that's our fault, because we didn't insist on the number of adequate parking to do that project. I voted against the PEDCOR project on Rowlett Road because of the same parking issues. And if you have people over for holidays or other events, there's no place to park the people. I think we have some serious issues with this thing that we shouldn't just go along with the developers. We need to really think through these things and carefully think about it and promote quality things, not mediocre things.
Our final question for the night, because of the time is drawing quickly to 9 o'clock. Our current mayor has been nicknamed Bat Mayor. Most folks here probably understand that's because Todd seemingly responds instantaneously to being tagged on Facebook or the bat light being shown into the night sky. Am I right? Okay. It's been said since he resigned that the next mayor will have some big shoes to fill. How do you plan to do that? Jason, we're going to start with you.
We do have big shoes to fill. Todd's done some great things in this city. As far as responding to Facebook and social media, I don't believe that, I'm not a huge fan of Facebook. I haven't used Facebook much myself. But I do feel as though there's a place for that. The best part of that is responding to citizens, and I feel that there are multiple ways to do that, making yourself available at City Hall, at different events. It's very important to be there and to respond, but it's also important to realize you're one person. You have a group. There's 7 people that build the city council, and there are a lot of talents that lie on that city council, and to not ensure that you use everybody's talents to the max would be a disservice. So I'm under no assumption that I can be every single thing all the time. That's why we do it. We would do it as a team. We would do it together, and we would use everybody for the betterment of the city.
Bruce?
I absolutely don't plan to step in the shoes of Todd Gattell. My shoes fit just fine. And I have so much admiration for Todd. I have a lot of respect for Todd. Todd's not only a person that I work with on the city council, but Todd's my friend as well. His family is my friend. And he's done a wonderful job as a mayor of our city. He came into office at a turbulent time. I've known some of the other mayors that have been here before, but I don't plan to be any of them. I plan to be me. And I plan to do the very best I can as mayor. And I try to be very sensitive. I have reached out to people through the social media. And out of all of the times I've asked people to contact me, let's get together, let's talk, I've had one person respond to that. Now, I can't make you sit down with me over coffee or a meal or whatever and visit and talk through your issues with you, but I am definitely going to be strategically available and accessible. I've always had in my career open door policy to see me, to do things with me and so forth, and I would do that right here as well. I also think that I am as a retired person, we have an office down there that's the office of mayor, and I actually plan to have office hours down there where people can come and drop in and sit down with me and visit. And I don't know when the last time that office was used like that. I know it is used occasionally. Todd's used it some. But I have absolutely no intention on being Todd Gattell or being in his shoes. I plan to be the very best Bruce Hargrave that I've always been and always will be.
Thank you, Bruce. Robert?
Well, I wear a size 13, so I don't know what Todd wears, but maybe you could call me Hoppy. I'm being an Australian, I'll be a hoppy kangaroo or a laid-back koala, one or the other, but I'm also Robert. Yes, I work on social media. I actually do that for a living. I post social media for various travel companies across the country, so you want to come and talk to me, I'm listening to you on Facebook. You want to talk to me sensibly and whatever, go right ahead. You want to hassle me? I'll cut you off, simple.
Okay. And Tammy?
So this was something that I contemplated long and hard before I decided to run for mayor, because Todd has done so well for this community. And it is impossible to fill his shoes. I have learned so much from Todd over the last 4+ years. But it's not about Todd, it's about this community. And some of the things he's taught me is you have to listen to the citizens, and you have to make sure that you get the truth out. Todd has said over and over to me, I just want to make sure people understand, and I just want to make sure they have the truth. And that is what he has done over the many, many years that he has served this community. And there's many ways he's done that. This isn't just about social media, although it seems to be about social media lately. But the truth is important, and the reasons why we do things are important. If you'll notice, when Todd is on the dais, you will always understand why he has a position in a particular way. And that is important, and he views that as important to the community and to the people he's serving. And I want to follow that methodology. I don't want to fill his shoes, but I do think it's important to have that two-way communication, to get the truth out, and to make sure that people understand why you take a specific position.
Thank you, Tammy. And thank you, candidates, for coming out tonight. Did everybody have a good time? Enjoy that? Get some good answers tonight? Okay. I want to thank Barry Woolley. Spin for me, Barry. You got to spin. You got to spin at least once a day. Okay, Barry Woolley for being our timekeeper. Thank the candidates again for coming out tonight. Thank Drew Rist again for making sure this is recorded and Facebook Living it. And thank all of you again for coming out. The next debate will be on the 19th, right back here, and it'll be all of the council candidates, not the mayoral candidates, just the other council candidates. All right, thanks a lot. Have a good evening.